The repair is really amazing. Luowen's damaged plug-in can be restored to normal use after a seemingly simple repair. How did the master of the Pakistani railway do it? The old man in front of him, he could see that the fixing thread of the adjustment bar and the speed insert was very bad. In this case, in order to facilitate subsequent repairs, the masters would repair this kind of thread damage block if they had a big rat tearing cone. It is obvious that there are no high-end taps in the repair shop. Since the uncle with glasses can take over this job, he must have conceived a repair plan in his mind. The uncle with glasses directly decided to use this scrap gear for modification and processing. After measuring and comparing the size with the card teeth, there is no problem, and then the lathe can be used for processing. Therefore, only this large gear is needed this time. The small one on the side needs to be cut off with a turning tool. Cut this section flat to facilitate subsequent fixation. After cutting is completed, the large gear on this side can be processed because it needs to be converted into a tearing cone. The diameter of the inch must be cut to a suitable size first. Since the gap between teeth is relatively small, it will affect the tearing cone's ability to eliminate the tearing cone. Therefore, the master has to mark the intervals between the gears and then cut and grind the marked teeth with an angle grinder. After a lot of grinding, the spacing between the teeth has become larger. Then the master only needs to process the threads on the teeth. Before the work, the master first uses a thread gauge to measure the pitch and marks it with a marker pen to observe the thread cutting later. With his skilled cutting, the thread here has been processed quickly. At this time, this large tap is finally made. In order to facilitate the subsequent use of the tap, to cut the differential, the tap needs to be welded and fixed to the steel pipe. After a series of tedious modifications by the uncle with glasses, the damaged thread of the differential can be repaired. In order to prevent the tap and the differential from being out of center when cutting the thread, Fu first installs a circular positioning scale head. This makes it very simple to use the tap to cut the thread. This special tool when cutting and repairing the threads, the uncle with glasses made the whole process very easy. The repair of the assembly was completed very quickly. The damage of the adjustment flange was still very serious. The flange was very thin. The welding of the flange could easily cause the adjustment flange to deform. So the master first needed to use a turning tool to cut the end face flat and then cut the inner mirror. Gradually control the amount of cutting until the size is cut to the appropriate size. After careful cutting, the uneven end face was cut flat, and then it was very easy to cut the outer mirror of the yuan gong. The fixed position of the chuck had been changed at this time. After the outer mirror was measured with a caliper to ensure that there was no problem, the thread for splicing could be cut. The pitch of the thread here needs to be consistent with that inside the speed reducer. During the process, the uncle with glasses strictly controlled the parameters of the thinking line and the cutting path. The thread on the side was cut very quickly. At that time, only the abandoned adjustment method was used. The blue was marked and the standard arc was eliminated inside the new adjustment flange. The internal hole for adjustment was processed. The master can only use a hairpin to knock out the positioning hole first, and then use a drill press to open the hole. At this time, the new adjustment flange has been processed. It can be seen that there is no problem between the flange and the fork speed device when testing Rowan. Then the master can assemble the fork speed device and adjust the gap by feeling. What do you think of the master's maintenance skills? If there are 10 points, how many points would you like to get?